The Ouroboros is probably one of the most well-known esoteric symbols, but also one of the most misinterpreted too. And this is because most people are now ignorant to the cycle of the great year in which mankind exists and which the Ouroboros represents. Unfortunately, in these times, it is far more attractive for mankind to deceive himself about the cycle he exists in, because it represents accountability. To believe a soul is not accountable for its actions or governed by larger influences is far more attractive than the truth, which is that each soul is accountable for the paths it has chosen to take as we descend through the ages of the great year. What mankind have forgotten is that his physical form is merely an organic sheath that houses his soul. It is only a garment and an extension of his true form. For man was created first and foremost as a being of light. As Hermes Trismegistus states in the Divine Pymander, God is in the mind in the soul in the matter, all things by eternity. All this universal body, in which are all bodies, is full of soul, the soul full of mind, the mind full of God. Throughout the great year, as we descend from the higher ages into the lower ages, the soul will wear many different garments and will walk many different paths, each path testing the soul for its worth while it is housed in its material shell, partaking in the Creator's experience. These verses from the ancient Egyptian Kolbrin manuscripts about the nature of a man's soul explain this further for us. For when a man comes to the realization that it is by the soul within him that he knows and experiences all things about him, he has taken the first step towards conscious immortality. The purpose of earth and earthly life is awakening of the souls of men. Earthly conditions can serve no other end. Naked does a man come from his mother's womb, and naked does he return to the womb of the earth. He brings no possessions with him to earth, and no more can be taken out. Yet he leaves not altogether as he entered. For though his riches and estate, his titles, even his clothes are left behind, if he has lived wisely, he goes out richer in soul wisdom, and arrayed in soul beauty. Man arrives at the great portal, arrayed in glory, or clothed in horror. Thus it is written in the secret books of wisdom, which are revealed to the few, the body is a womb, life the days of conception, and death the birth of the soul. Is it not written that some shall bring forth monsters and fearful things, and some shall bear gods? These things are not beyond your understanding. These verses once again relate to us that when we know ourselves and perceive ourselves as we truly are, we understand that our physical shell merely houses our soul. For in our true forms we are light beings, partaking in a physical experience. We can also see the symbol of the serpent used in the mythology of many different cultures. We have Apophis from the ancient Egyptian mythology, Ophiuchus grasping and controlling serpents shown in the constellations and the myths from ancient Greece, and even the giant serpent Jormungand in the Norse mythology, which are all representing the struggle mankind has with himself as he descends through the ages of the great year. The serpent, like the double-edged sword, is a symbol that represents both the positive and negative side of wisdom. For knowledge, when used correctly, can elevate a man out of his state of unconsciousness and his material prison. However, if he allows himself to fall into ignorance, the serpent pulls him down into his base nature, and his vices take control of him instead. One of the reasons for mankind's existence is that every man and woman must safeguard their heritage and raise themselves above earthy sordidness. Therefore, the struggle of life is with man, and the struggle of man is with himself. The Ouroboros is also shown eating his tail. This is symbolizing at the end of the great year cycle, all matter is once again resolved into itself. We can see this process of all matter being resolved into its own roots explained in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Will matter then be destroyed or not? The Saviour said, all nature, all formations, all creatures exist in and with one another, and they will be resolved again into their own roots. For the nature of matter is resolved into the roots of its own nature alone. At the end of the great year, all souls will be weighed for the light they contain. The word sin actually means the weight that dims the light in one's heart. When a soul moves out of alignment with divine law, it creates sin or weight in the heart. Therefore, it is not God who deems a soul worthy of entering into the golden age of a new great year, for each soul has chosen its fate due to its own free will choices. We also see this explained in the verses from the Colburn manuscripts. In his sight all men are equal, and he judges them as men and not according to their estate. The rich and the poor, the highborn and the lowly, the wise and the simple, all receive a fitting reward according to their labours. From each is expected results according to his abilities. From some much, from others little. Only that which serves the purpose of the great God is accounted as worthy by him. The true God neither rewards nor punishes, for he has established the law, whereby each man decrees his own fate. The future destiny and circumstances of the soul are shaped in the earthly body. When, in the hour of its release, the soul takes flight, freed from its earthly container of flesh, it assumes the form moulded by its desires. In that awesome day of reckoning, the wicked shall be revealed in their hideous shapelessness, but the upright shall step forward in splendour. Many modern Christians claim to be born again. However, they are in error, for one can not be born again until the soul has been weighed and passed judgment. This is also represented in the symbolism of the wheat being sorted from the tares, for the symbol of the wheat represents those who carry the light and who will be born again, or resurrected, into a new great year. This is also what the symbol of the phoenix rising from the ashes represents, the rebirth or resurrection of the soul after the light within it has been weighed, and it is then resurrected into a new great year. These verses from the Gospel of Thomas also explain this further. The disciples said to Jesus, "Tell us, how will our end come?" Jesus said, "Have you found the beginning, then, that you are looking for the end? You see, the end will be where the beginning is. Congratulations to the one who stands at the beginning. That one will know the end and will not taste death." Jesus said, "The Father's kingdom is like a person who has seed. His enemy came during the night and sowed weeds amongst the good seed. The person did not let the workers pull up the weeds, but said to them, 'No, otherwise you might go to pull up the weeds and pull up the wheat along with them. For on the day of the harvest the weeds will be conspicuous and will be pulled up and burned. Another symbol relaying similar information to the Ouroboros is the symbol of the wheel, either shown by itself or attached to the chariot on which divine man rides. We see this shown here with the Greek mythology of Zeus, symbolic for the Creator, riding a chariot with a four-spoked wheel, symbolizing the four larger epochs within the great year of the gold, silver, bronze and iron ages. He returns to find mankind controlled by their lower nature, which we can see symbolized by the serpents. However, we also often find the symbol of the chariot with the divine male and female riding it, which is relating to their journey as they descend through the ages from the higher ages of light into the lower ages of darkness, where the gods and goddesses now find themselves sleeping in matter amongst the mortals, unaware of their own true divine nature, until the light and their illumination once again returns. We can see this return of the light and Christ consciousness illuminating divine man also shown within the allegory of the Christian scriptures in this verse from Ephesians, which states, "But everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. This is why it is said, 'Wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and the Christ will shine on you.'" Carl Jung also understood this truth when he said, "For the alchemist, the one primarily in need of redemption is not man, but the deity who is lost and sleeping in matter." In the Corpus Hermetica, we also see Hermes relate that there is a difference between divine men, who are created closer to God, and mortals, who are an extension of the divine man. However, both divine and mortal man have the same potential to fall into ignorance of themselves and be controlled by their base animal state in the lower ages of the great year. In this verse, Hermes states, "The intellect, O Tat, is drawn from the very substance of God. In men, this intellect is God, and so some men are gods, and their humanity is near to the divine. When man is not guided by intellect, he falls below himself into an animal state. All men are subject to destiny, but those in possession of the Logos, which commands the intellect from within, are not under it in the same manner as others. God's two gifts to man, of intellect and the Logos, have the same value as immortality. If man makes right use of these, he differs in no way from the immortals." These larger four epochs in the great year can also be related to the seasons. Just as the microcosm of these cycles can be seen in the solar return, which has its 4 seasons, this also corresponds in the macrocosm of the galactic cycle of the great year. The summer can be seen as related to the Golden Age, and the winter to the Iron Age. This is also symbolically relayed in a verse from the Gospel of Philip. "Those who sow in winter reap in summer. The winter is the world, the summer the other aeon. Let us sow in the world that we may reap in the summer. Because of this, it is fitting for us not to pray in the winter. Summer follows winter. But if any man reap in winter, he will not actually reap, but only pluck out, since it will not provide a harvest to such a person." Virgil, the ancient Roman poet, also related this cycle of the ages, ending in the iron race, otherwise known as mortal man, in the lower ages, before the light returns once again, and with it the birth of the golden divine race, who are illuminated and arise from their slumber, beginning with the firstborn son, in which the symbol of Jesus also represents. Virgil relays this knowledge of the cycle to us in his ancient writings of Pollio. Now is come the last age of the Cumean prophecy. The great cycle of periods is born anew. Now returns the maid, returns the reign of Saturn. Now from high heaven a new generation comes down. Yet do thou at that boy's birth, in whom the iron race shall begin to cease, and the golden to arise all over the world. In the 7 principles of Hermetics, it also teaches us about the cycles we exist in, and helps us to understand how the ether acts as the ocean does, and moves in and out of our material plane, bringing with it the light and the return of Christ consciousness, also symbolized in the Christian scriptures as the Holy Spirit. The principle of rhythm explains this in more detail. Everything flows out and in, everything has its tides, all things rise and fall, the pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. We can view the ether acting like a medium in which the light and Christ consciousness exist within. Like the tide, when the ether moves in, we are in the higher ages and exist in a more ethereal state of higher consciousness. When it moves out, we lose access to the light and are again in a more physical state of the cycle, a period when mortals and divine man have forgotten themselves and their battle with their lower base natures becomes more difficult. However, this is how the universe remains in balance, and all souls are tested for their true worth and determine their own fates based on their actions in these lower ages. The Hindu Vishnu Purana also tells us we can identify the lower ages when we observe mankind move into these unconscious behaviors motivated by only knowing ourselves externally. It states, when society reaches a stage where property confers rank, where wealth becomes the only source of virtue, passion the sole bond between man and wife, falsehood the source of success in life, sex the only means of enjoyment, and when outer trappings are confused with inner religion, then we are in the Kali Yuga, the Dark Age. I hope this information has given further insight into the meanings behind the esoteric symbols of the Ouroboros and the wheel. But do not let your journey of knowledge seeking end with this video. Use this knowledge to open the door within your mind to a clearer understanding of yourself and your place within creation. This video serves only to give you a glimpse of the knowledge that these symbols hold within them. But just as the iceberg only shows a small part of itself on the surface, this is also the way esoteric symbols hide the depth of the information they contain. Keep seeking, for it is written, to one who knocks, the door will be opened.